So we are here for the NCAA Women's College Basketball Scores for Wednesday, January 7th, 2025 here. So let's go talk about all the games here. Today we had number 1 UConn, blow out St. John's. They dominated from the start, 88-43, winning their 32nd straight game in a row from the 24-25 season. They won the national championship in that year, and then now been undefeated in the 25-26 season at 16-0. They won so since they upset number 11 Iowa 71-63. Since they has lost a bunch of weaker non-power conference teams, and they end up beating number 11 Iowa State 71-63. Number 13 TCU survives against Oklahoma State. It's a tough matchup for TCU, but they do it. It's 69-61. Texas, number 17, Texas Tech. I mean, there's some more beans in conference play that have lost in non-conference, like mid-majors. But there's still a few teams like UConn and I believe Vanderbilt might be still undefeated. You have Texas Tech still unbeaten. Texas Tech last season, everyone was like, Texas Tech had a weak non-conference and they didn't do so hot in conference play. Like LSU, how LSU does well in conference play. But they might lose a few games in conference play, but they do well in the conference play. Not enough to say they're really in like a top conference. I have to say, okay, at least you're at least worthy of it. Okay, whatever. You blow off the weak non-conference. They do well in the tough SEC conference to be like, okay, that's respectable. They're not gonna be probably the number 1 ranked team in the country, but they'll be like still a solid team. Maybe like Elite 8, Final Four. They were a national championship contender, winner like a few years ago with Milwaukee. So, and now Texas Tech last season, they made it to the WBIT last season as a quarterfinal team. They won the quarterfinal. They lost in the quarterfinal of WBIT. So I thought, like, they're, okay. Maybe this year they'll make it to probably this year I could see them making it to the NCAA tournament. Maybe a first 4 team. Maybe like a 9 seed, 10 seed, 11 seed, that range. But no, I did not expect them. But this year they beat Arkansas, Mississippi State. And there's been rumors of Krista Gerlich at Texas Tech. Like, it's her assistants that are like what she needs to do is like clear the freshen up her assistants and stuff like that, possibly. Like, I follow like the NCAA women's basketball, NCAW like subreddit, RNCW on Reddit, like the NCAA, and that's what people are saying, which I could see it, maybe. I actually didn't mind Texas Tech personally. Like, I actually thought they were better than their record indicated, but and then this year, they win 71-66. They beat Arkansas, Mississippi State. They beat Baylor at Baylor, and then they played another power conference team, SMU. So that's a solid team. They beat Baylor. They beat West Virginia, which is a solid team. A solid, really solid unranked team is West Virginia. They were 3-0 in non-conference play. They beat Arizona with Becky Burke, beat UCF. So they've had some really solid like non-conference. So not bad though. Number 19, Ohio State defeats Illinois 78-16. Illinois is a solid team. So is Ohio State. So that was two really solid programs, two really solid Big Ten schools being out. And then we had some Education Day, Kids Day, Field Trip Day, whatever you want to call it, for now. And what that is basically where schools will invite like elementary school kids, like maybe some like 4th, 5th graders maybe. But they basically it's like elementary school kids. Sometimes maybe like 5th, maybe middle school. They'll basically invite like kids for like a women's basketball game, and they'll invite them to a sporting event. They get to watch like a women's basketball game. A lot of times sometimes it is with some schools do it with a men's game, maybe instead of a women's game. Like maybe a men's team is playing a non-Division One team. Like a Division One men's team is playing a non-Division One men's team. So they do it against that, like games that might not get a ton of attendance normally. Or they do it like, hey, we're playing a non-Division One team. We'll do it then. Or sometimes they do it in the conference play. They just do whatever they can, to get the students up. And they have like the students there. Area schools. Not every school does it in the country. Like I know my school, I follow the Minnesota Gophers. They actually used to do that, but they don't anymore. They did, Some schools do it, some don't. But either way, I do like it. Brings the kids out, gets to see women's best game. Or some schools that don't have like maybe their marquee sport, women's hockey. They bring that women's hockey game. I know the Gophers did for women's hockey game. So yeah, they do it for other sports. So I like it. It brings out, and then they have like a education component to it. Like the kids might learn about like health and fitness, or they get a tour of the school, or something that kind of like educational component that the kids will actually, kids would actually enjoy. Because sometimes with kids, certain things, if they learn about, depending on what you're learning about, it'd be hard to get the kids engaged, about learning. If you have a fun way to do it, you get the kids in, where it's like learning, where the kids are learning something, but it doesn't feel like learning. That's kind of a good way to do it, for kids. Get kids involved in it. And yeah, there was a 3 games today. Rhode Island defeated George Washington 78-70. Central Michigan 66-57 Oregon State. And Lafayette 65-64 at Boston University. So Kent Central Michigan was the only of the 3 Education Day games. They were the only one. Central Michigan was the only one to win. Their home. And then we had a low scoring game between two solid teams in A10 last year. Davidson St. Joseph's. Davidson won 48-36 over St. Joseph's. Duquesne St. Bonaventure, a very low scoring game with Duquesne, 46-38. Especially in the shot clock era. I mean, I've heard of like some like high school some states in like high school, like their athletic associations, they don't have like shot clocks for basketball. Like how remember NCAA men's basketball. I remember they used to actually be like a 40-second shot clock. Like 15, 20 years ago. It used to be. They went down to like a 35-second shot clock. And even like a 30-second shot clock. Now they do like the internet. They do more of like the international rules they're trying to follow. More of like the FIBA rules. The men. So I like, but they don't even, some states don't even have like the 40-second shot clock. And I've seen like teams just hold it. Like their strategy might be just to hold it for like a whole quarter, and then it's like they make the score like 10-8. It's like really. But even for a shot clock era, 30-second shot clock era, you know, basketball, college basketball, 46-38 is hard. It's low. That's low. That is low. And then Richmond 84-65 over Fordham. In overtime, American University defeats Colgate 59-56. Longwood 83-60 George Charleston Southern. High Point 76-43 over Presbyterian. Lehigh 60-57 over Holy Cross. Navy 77-51 over Bucknell University. And then Northern Illinois 64-50 over Buffalo. In the Sun Belt game of the week. Or I don't know about the game of the week, but the game of the match day, I guess you would say. Like match day 5. I guess I say match day because kind of it's like 5th day of games. I guess the 5th, like it's kind of like like NFL, or soccer where you have like so many games like like Wednesdays, like Thursdays, or so whatever. And then you have games like there are a lot like Wednesdays. And the best game on this Wednesday was Old Dominion at Marshall, and it was 77-78. It really lived up to it. Old Dominion was actually up 4 at the half. But then they were up 3 after 3, and then after 4 quarters, fourth, Old Marshall won it by 10 in 30. Then Georgia Southern, and James Madison Georgia Southern was a good one as well. Just that one was first Old Dominion Marshall game because Marshall was unbeaten in the conference play, and Georgia Southern won 78-70 over James. That was a good one too in the Sun Belt. And then Ball State 72-60 over Toledo. At Coastal Carolina, they were all over Appalachian State in the first quarter, and that was really what the big factor was. That's really what gave them the big lead. They had put them 9 out, even though it was closer than the other 3 quarters. Old Coastal Carolina wins 69-53. Later Chicago 71-60 over Dean. In the A10, the feature in the A10. The 2 ended up being teams coming into that. And George Mason wins 62-37 over South. Butler, Butler falls to Georgetown, my bad. Butler falls to Georgetown 63-46. 66-64 Winthrop over South Carolina Upstate. Army 71-66 over Maryland. And then UNC Asheville 62-51 over Gardner-Webb. Cleveland State 87-75 over Wright State. Miami, Ohio 72-60 over Massachusetts. There were 2-2-0 leading teams in that. It was really at second quarter 30-13. Good open for Miami, Ohio. In the Ohio unbeaten in MAC play in the Mid-American Conference. 86-87 over Eastern Michigan. Western Michigan 55-40 over Akron. Detroit 84-40 on Bolt win over Texas State. Utah 62-59 close one. This is right at Kansas State. Kansas State was actually down 11 at halftime, but then they tied it up after in the third, 19-8, and there was 4 players ejected for Houston. That's really what hurt Houston's chances of keeping of that win. Again, their first Big 12 win of the season. And the fourth, they won by 9, 71-62. VCU wins 50-30 over Seals. 2 defeated teams in the Atlantic, or in the American. I say Atlantic, but the American. Say Atlantic. The American Conference. two beat defeated teams. They were, and defeated is where you haven't won a single game. You know, and they did. Going into that game, they were 0-2 in conference play. Remember, 0-2, but Memphis got the win in the American game, and themselves win number 1 in the American Conference. And they won 74-66. Rice dominates Charlotte in the second quarter and the third quarter. They dominated to win 84-59. The stand being who are 3-0 in the American. New Mexico beats Colorado State, close one, 66-59. And by 7, and it was really that. They're up 1 after 3. They're an 18-2 second quarter. They're losing the first. Colorado State winning the first, 22-13. And then we had 66-59. So, and then, so that was a two really nice ballot. New Mexico was 3-1. Colorado State was 4-0 in the conference. Boise State 70-59 over Air Force. Arizona State, after losing to BYU, they bounced back with a 68-45 win at home against UCF. San Diego State 87-69 over Grand Canyon. Fresno State 67-52 over San Jose State. UNLV goes to 5-0 in the Mountain West with a 68-58 win over Utah State. And Nevada wins 70-60 overwhelming in overtime. It was 59-all in the regulation, but then Nevada just dominated the overtime period, winning 11-1. Well, 11-1 run. They won 70-60.